Today's forum is being live streamed and filmed by Audrey Kapp. Raise your hand, Audrey, over there, from our local cable access television station, BATV. The tape will be posted on the websites of the local leagues participating, Vote 411, and the Illinois Voter Guide. I am now going to ask Wendy Connell from the Aurora League to step forward and give you some information.
Hi, welcome. I'm Wendy Connell, the Voter Services Chair for the League of Women Voters, the Aurora area. We recently reformed. There had been a long gap in Aurora for having a league, and so we recently reformed in 2019, right before the COVID pandemic. So this is our first in-person forum that we've done in a couple of years with our league, and so we're so happy to be partnering with our sister leagues from the other areas. And we will be having a forum next Wednesday evening virtually for the Kendall County Board Districts 1 and Districts 2, and that will be live streamed on our Facebook page. So we're so thankful for the candidates who are here and the volunteers who are here tonight, and especially to Aurora University for hosting us this evening.
Thank you, Wendy. The moderator for today's forum is Jan Dorner, President and Voter Service Chair from the Elmhurst League of Women Voters. Jan?
My name is Jan Dorner. I live in Elmhurst, and I live in the Illinois House District 45, so I do not have a vote in this race. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. We are happy to provide this service for the community. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for verifying the accuracy of the statements that candidates make in this forum. Questions have been collected from League and community members before this forum and were screened for duplication, clarity, and appropriateness to the office being discussed. The candidates have not been provided the questions before the forum. At this time, I would ask that you please turn off cell phones and other electronic devices. I would also ask that you refrain from applauding or in any other way demonstrating support or opposition of a candidate. No campaign literature may be passed out in this room. Note cards and pencils have been provided on which to submit your questions. Questions will be screened again for duplication, clarity, and appropriateness to the office being discussed. Please signal a volunteer when your question is ready for submission. Also signal a volunteer if additional note cards are needed. This forum is between the two candidates seeking to represent the Illinois 83rd House District of the Illinois General Assembly. The candidates agreed in the ground rules that no voice, image, or other duplication of the forum may be used by any candidate's representative or campaign in any campaign advertising. They will each receive a 90-second introductory statement determined alphabetically by last name. Then questions will be asked and each candidate will have up to 1 minute to respond in alternating order. Closing statements will be 90 seconds. Candidates, please notice the timers. When you see the stop sign, you may finish your sentence. Our candidates this evening are Matt Hansen and Keith Wheeler. So Matt Hansen, would you please start your opening statement? You have 90 seconds.
Good evening and thank you. Thank you to AU, thank you to the League of Women's Voters for having this forum and giving me the chance to introduce myself as I look forward to representing you in the 83rd, whether you are actually here tonight or not. I have not been a career politician. I run trains for a living. I'm proud to say that I've served in government on the King County Board and actually voted in passed responsible budgets that served not only my district and the King County Board, but also the entire county. There's a lot on this ballot that I'm proud to be a part of and proud to represent and defend, and that can be voter rights, that can be women's rights, that can be women's reproductive health rights, that's workers' rights, That's rights to clean air. That's rights to clean water. Things that haven't been challenged for a long time that currently are a part of everyone's conversations at home. Every election, every single one of us has a personal and a bigger economy in mind. And with that, stretching our dollar to the best way we possibly can is important to me. I look forward to being responsible fiscally for each individual and for not only 83rd, but the entire state too.
Thank you. Keith Wheeler, your opening statement.
Thank you. I say thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight, as well as to our university. I am certainly grateful that all of you are here tonight. I'm also grateful to see my wife in the audience. I want to thank her for all of her support and all the sacrifice that she goes through on behalf of me endeavoring into the political world. You know, running for office right now with an R next to your name has certainly seen better days. But the common sense folks that I've talked to throughout our district, they continue to tell me that they vote for the person and not for the party. And we all understand that thousands of families in our district are suffering right now. They're struggling with having to deal with massive increases in their daily costs, dealing with property taxes that we've all seen that are too high for too long. And some of them have some serious concerns about their public safety issues. They don't care about party either. What they want is someone who will deliver. And I've proven through my tenure in the legislature a strong record of independence, and I've probably earned a reputation as maybe the most bipartisan member of the Illinois House of Representatives. To that point, Governor Pritzker signed more bills of mine than any other House Republican. In fact, he signed more of my bills than 75% of the House Democrats who've served since he's been here. With that, I look forward to the questions tonight. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. Question 1, we'll start with Keith Wheeler. Will you support amendments of the Safety Act to address concerns expressed by both Republican and Democrat state's attorneys? Or is repeal of the act the only option? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I voted against the Safety Act when it was on the House floor. It definitely needs to be amended. Naturally, until we actually negotiate those amendments, it's very difficult to say what we do in that case. But I am a proponent of amending the Safety Act in its current form. The state attorneys have come together in a bipartisan way to say that there's going to be a situation where pretrial detainees will be effectively unable to be detained if in very violent criminal situations. We have to address that before January 1st. I've talked to my friends in the Senate, I've talked to other House colleagues. Many of them are in agreement with that, but we aren't having the conversations we should be having right now to find those answers, to find those amendments, and get together in a bipartisan way. I hope we get that done during the veto session that's upcoming, but I am a proponent of changing the Safety Act, definitely.
Thank you. Matt Hansen, same question.
Thank you. Well, I was not there for the passage of the Safety Act in any of its current form. There's a lot of concerns about it. There's a lot of misinformation out there, frankly, coming from both parties. And anytime there's the opportunity to reform criminal justice, to improve public safety, I want to be a part of that conversation. And so should everyone else. And the easiest thing to do would be to say, scrap it and start over. But I confirm, or I should say I agree with Keith in that there needs to be some tweaks, there needs to be some reforms, and that conversation, I believe, are already taking place, and the right people have to be at the table. Anytime you want to change something that's been enacted, let's get the right people at the table when we make the changes. Simple as that.
Thank you. Candidate Hansen, this question goes to you first. Should the state of Illinois provide respite support services and/or funding for families and individuals who are primary caretakers of individuals with mental, physical, or cognitive disabilities?
I don't need 60 seconds for that. Yes.
Okay. Candidate Wheeler.
Could you read the last part of the question? I'm not sure I heard all of it.
Absolutely. Should the state of Illinois provide respite support services and/or funding for families and individuals who are primary caretakers of individuals with mental, physical, or cognitive disabilities?
Yes, as a member of a family who has had some special needs concerns, we understand this pervades into other areas of life and healthcare concerns. I'm a proponent of the state taking a more active role. I think our state actually is somewhat deficient in many ways when it comes to how we take care of our most vulnerable. I support the measure you mentioned.
Thank you. Candidate Wheeler, do you support banning the purchase and ownership of assault weapons and ammunitions by individuals?
That's a really critically important question right now. We see what happened in Highland Park. Certainly a terrible tragedy. It reminded me so much of what happened in Aurora as well. I've reached out to my colleagues who are at that parade in Highland Park. I've also reached out to Representative Hirschauer, who already has an assault weapons ban bill in the House. That discussion that we've had, she said, I asked her, I said, have you talked to any other Republicans about this bill yet? She said, no, I'm going to call you first when we get there. I said, well, we need to have some discussions about how we're going to define an assault weapon. I'm open to the idea of making changes to our firearms laws. I've already demonstrated that independence from my party in the past. However, the definitions really do matter in this, because what some say looks like an assault weapon or acts like an assault weapon, those are issues that we really have to contend with. And I'm expecting that if our party, or if they actually have real negotiations, I would be the point person for the House Republicans on that measure. So I keep an open mind as we try to find the right balance to improve public safety.
Thank you. Candidate Hansen, same question.
You read it again? I'm sorry.
Do you support banning the purchase and ownership of assault weapons and ammunitions by individuals?
The high volume, rapid ammunitions and assault weapons, yes, I support that. I'll actually answer it. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I don't believe that some of the things that were written over 200 years ago, frankly, qualify for needing a militia, an armed militia right now. And the moment we're invaded, the moment we need an armed militia, they can have their assault weapons back. But yes, I'll support the banning of assault-style weapons. To the representative's point, though, the language does matter. But those two items, I'm in support of banning them.
Thank you. Matt Hansen, will you support increased funding for Illinois' higher education university system? How will you support investments in vocational education, especially for at-risk youth?
Great question. So I'll actually vote on budgets, and I'll vote on funding that's frankly taken place during this administration in Springfield versus the last couple. It needs to continue. Every level of education, pre-K all the way through higher ed, it has to continue. That was neglected for a long time. The Rebuild Illinois, the infrastructure bill, for lack of a better term, finally puts money back into our university system. When it comes to vocational training and options for folks that may not realize that the university is for them, some high schools around here already have that in place. Not everyone has resources that the 83rd and some of the school districts in the 83rd have. Every community college, junior college, high school should have that as an option, or explained to them as an opportunity versus either university or not.
Thank you. Keith Wheeler, same question.
Yeah, I think this is really important because we need to keep more of our kids in our state. And we had an issue. I mean, I have two kids that wound up going to Iowa State University because they had actually got a better deal than an in-state school. And much as I appreciate the Cyclones, I'd love to have them stay and go to my alma mater, which is the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So funding for universities is absolutely essential to keeping our kids at home. At the same time, vocational education is also essential. Not every kid's going to go to college. Not every kid needs to and make that kind of investment. Their families need to be burdened with thousands and thousands of dollars of student debt for a career or for a degree that they may not even use. They're great careers. I grew up in the trades, and my brothers are all involved in the trades. Absolutely wonderful lives that they have. They can support their families and do a great job. The vocational education is very essential to that as well. I appreciate, we have to fund all of this. This is actually part of what a state should do.
Thank you. Candidate Wheeler, do you support a woman's right to choose regarding her reproductive health?
That's the first time I've been asked that question in a long time, except every single day, right? This is an issue that we're all talking about. First, let me say that the changing or the repealing of the Roe v. Wade decision at the Supreme Court didn't change anything in the state of Illinois as far as access to abortion. That is actually, we probably have some of those little abortion access situations in the entire country. My wife and I are personally pro-life, but that's a philosophical approach. We look at it from the point of view that we want to support moms who are carrying all the way to term. At the same time, we think this is a very personal issue, and that every person's voice should be heard equally. I believe that we should have a referendum approach that's been taken similar to what happened in Kansas, what's going on in Michigan, because we talk about gerrymandering and other things as far as representative government, but this is personal to everyone, and I think everyone's voice should be heard equally.
Thank you. Candidate Hansen, same question.
This is not topical. It's absolutely about privacy. It's about women's reproductive health rights and privacy for any individual. These decisions that are being considered right now, okay, it's between that individual, that woman, and her family, and their doctors. Government does not have a place to tell someone what they can or cannot do with their body. It doesn't matter what someone thinks. Role in government does not have a place in saying so. It does not have a place in telling them what to do.
Thank you. Candidate Hansen, do you support the objectives of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA? What policies and programs will you support to enable or enhance the mission of CEJA?
Thank you for asking, and I'm very glad that Representative Wheeler voted in favor of the CEJA Act. There's more work to be done. Illinois has the infrastructure. They have the right manpower. They have the right facilities in place. They have the right entities in place to get better with what CEJA began. I didn't get the chance to vote on it. Had I been in the assembly, I would have happily supported it. Renewable energy projects that take the skills and the trades and the intellectual property, the intellectual expertise we have here in the state to get better at it. Let's build upon it. It's a hell of a start.
Thank you. Candidate Wheeler?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Not only did I vote for it, but I was the point House Republican person in the hundreds of hours of negotiation behind closed doors with many advocates from all perspectives of energy. And Illinois wants to be a leader in clean energy. We've taken a great first step. There are a few things we're probably going to have to address almost immediately in order to secure stability when it comes to energy, especially for our downstate neighbors. The impact for the northern part of the state, which is part of what's called PGM, is nuclear support. And we did a great job, I believe, of maintaining that. And actually, as energy prices rose, we had to have a rebate coming back to the tax or to the ratepayers in that part of our state. Unfortunately, downstate didn't have the same situation. They didn't get the same rebate. Their prices are going up dramatically. As a state, we need to secure a reliable energy supply for everyone, and it's going to take some more work for us to do on CEJA.
Thank you. Keith Wheeler, should Illinois be offering incentives to businesses to hire workers with criminal records? What types of incentives would you endorse?
That's a great question, because we've done a lot of work in the 4 terms that I've had in the General Assembly trying to address issues for getting people who have a record, that pay their debt to society, they're back in public, and they want to go to work. They want to support a family. They want to go forward in their lives. And it's difficult. And we've checked a lot of boxes, literally I said it on purpose because we did a check the box because you can't have that anymore on an application. You want people to come back and be productive members of society. So yes, I have written actually a handful of job incentive bills, including the Blue Collar Jobs Act. So I look forward to working on with any of the advocacy groups that are interested in moving that forward. I would probably be your champion for that approach.
Thank you. Matt Hansen, same question.
Every decision made, excuse me, every decision made should be within the framework of how can I help someone improve their life, their lifestyle. And I'm proud to be a part of a party that always looks to be inclusive, that searches for equality, and second chances when earned have to be rewarded. And if there are any policies on the books, if there's folks and companies that are not giving people that deserve a second chance that chance, that's unacceptable. So any chance that you have, either through re-entry into the workplace, additional training, additional funding to make sure they have the option to train, I'll be on board with.
Thank you. Candidate Hansen, is Illinois' response to the opioid crisis adequate? How can Illinois assist county and municipal governments assess the impact of the crisis and address the crisis?
Well, thank you for bringing it down to the county or the area level. When one party was hell-bent on don't legalize cannabis and turning a blind eye to the real issue, a more significant issue, with the opioid crisis, that was something that I dealt with on the county board when I served in the Kane County board, and was more than happy to assist our legal partners, our legal leadership, our law enforcement leadership in addressing those issues, making sure our health department had the resources they needed to address that. Meanwhile, the other party wanted to go ahead and talk about we can't legalize cannabis. The options for the entire state, it comes down to region by region, county by county. Listen to your leadership, listen to your health departments, listen to your law enforcement officials. They know the best recipe, the best answers for your specialized area, and how to find the most appropriate solutions, and then you advocate on their behalf.
Thank you. Candidate Wheeler.
Thank you. This is actually a vital question. We had a meeting yesterday with the King County Coroner and went through some statistics that are unnerving. There are more opioid-related deaths in King County than car crashes and gunshot victims combined in the last year. We don't talk about it enough. This is something that is going to have to take some real leadership from our state. And to the point of understanding why this is happening. How is a drug like fentanyl becoming so available, so easy for people to get? And I thought it was an issue with young people. And I was corrected very directly by the coroner that this is 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s-year-old people are having issues with this, and they're dying. And we have not taken a practical approach as a state. It is time we do that. It is happening everywhere. Thank you.
Candidate Wheeler, what programs do you propose to cut in order to reduce property taxes?
There's a fantastic question. This is something we've been talking about for quite a while. Two components I want to bring up. Number one, property taxes are driven very, very high in our state, the second highest in the country, by our lack of education funding from the state. Back in 2017, I was fortunate to be a part of the group of House Republicans who stood firm until we got some issues that we thought were very important into the evidence-based funding formula, which by all accounts has improved funding to our local school districts. Now, is it enough yet? No, there's ways to go, but we are committed, and I made a commitment on behalf of my residents that we want to see at least a $350 million increase on an annual basis for at least 10 years to bring our state's funding to local districts to a level where it should be. The other part to take care of real quick, and I don't want to run out of time, is going to be that we have seniors and veterans who need assistance and a way to help pay the property taxes. They can't be taxed out of their homes. I was glad to work with Representative Kipwood in the last spring session here to file a bill to work on a bill that addressed some of those issues. We have more work to do, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Hansen, what programs do you propose to cut in order to reduce property taxes?
That's tough for someone who's not in Springfield. That's a line item by line item conversation. I think a better approach is to find out what can we do to improve people's lives without increasing the tax burden on the people with fixed incomes, on the working middle class. For there may be increased programs. Assuming that you have to cut things doesn't always make sense. We can be more efficient with the programs we have. We can redefine the programs we offer. We can also find different ways to increase revenues. You've seen budgets that were passed, not by everyone, budgets that were passed, and there were surpluses that took place as a result, and that money was smartly reinvested to make sure that we're in a better financial place. It comes down to our state's finances, and then what are we able to do going forward. It doesn't always mean cutting.
Thank you. Matt Hansen, how will you support the findings and recommendations of the State of Illinois Water Task Force to safeguard water resources and improve water quality in our district?
So that would take more homework on my behalf. I don't think there's a never-ending straw in the Lake Michigan. I do think that water and pipes and things above ground are part of the infrastructure issues that are facing a lot of municipalities, taxing bodies, and the entire state. I don't have a direct answer for you for how to make that better, but it's a serious issue. If we plan on outliving this election cycle, water availability and everything below ground and above ground that isn't the cool and sleek infrastructure that are roads and bridges really has to be addressed. I don't have a great answer for you.
Thank you. Keith Wheeler, same question.
Thank you. Drinking water, safe drinking water is obviously a concern to every family in our state, to all of us personally. I live in Oswego. I was very, very happy to support a bill that Senator Holmes had presented in the Senate that would allow the villages of Oswego and Montgomery, as well as the city of Yorkville, to eventually tie on to get some drinking water from Lake Michigan as our aquifer is drying up. We know that this is a problem that's going to be bigger and bigger. And it's also going to take more thought, more process, more, I'll say collaboration, something we don't talk about enough in Springfield, but we actually do a pretty good job of behind the scenes most of the time. I'm confident that the advocates who have done these studies are going to be approaching us in Springfield with a list of bills, a list of approaches, and budget requests that will start the ball rolling in the right direction here. But this is going to be a collaborative effort that's going to take a long time to get right.
Thank you. Candidate Wheeler, how will you work to protect and increase voter registration and access to the polls?
Well, that's a great question, because I believe that in my very first year in office, we took up the first automatic voter registration bill, which I voted for, as a measure that would allow everyone to not have to go through that extra process of making a special trip to get registered to vote, when they're at the DMV or other places like that can go on. But there's more work to do. We have too low of a voter participation level in the state of Illinois, actually in the entire country. That's why I love forums like this. They give us a chance to collaborate with the community, to hear concerns, and answer questions, and hopefully find people who can get involved, maybe find people who run for office. These are all ways that we can engage the public in a better way and get them to come out and be part of the solution, rather than staying home and not being part of the solution and just complaining about it.
Thank you. Candidate Hansen, same question.
Thank you to King County, Illinois, for having safe and fair elections first and foremost. One party clearly wants to make sure that voting is less easy than it should be. One party is very clear in making sure that voter accessibility is a priority, and I believe it's on this ballot. And when I say the ballot, I mean the entire ballot. Someone's right to vote has to be protected. Someone's right to vote has to be accessible. Someone's right to vote has to be explained to them at times because it may be a new function to them. I agree with Representative Wheeler that voter turnout isn't as high as it should be. Part of that's on us. And one party always makes sure that it's as difficult as it possibly can be. One party always makes sure that it's part of every conversation to make sure that every resident has their chance to vote.
Thank you. We've gone through 11 questions. We have no more up here. So let's go to closing statements. Matt Hansen, do you want to start? 90 seconds.
I was told I don't have a chance because I'm running against someone that's been there for 8 years. I'm not a career politician. I've had time in government. I am not someone designed to have a long career in politics. I care about everything that everyone that I've spoken to cares about. There's something on this ballot, meaning the November general election, for everyone. And I don't have a solution for all of it, but I'll fight for all of it. I've done that at the county level. I do that every day in work. I'm a regular, everyday worker on a railroad. Okay? I'm an essential worker by someone's definition. I've worked 24/7, 365 in every possible condition with people just like you, people that are watching tonight. And we've been pounded over and over and over again by a certain party. And folks that work for a living need to be represented. I'm one of those folks. I understand the nuances and also the difficulties of getting legislation passed. But I also understand what common sense legislation looks like and what most of us care about. And I'll be there every single day. And I promise, as being a non-career politician, that I will have ears. I'm getting that at every single door that I spend time at, every single conversation I have at not their residents. People are willing to talk. They're willing to find out what you stand for and what you'll fight for. Big ears matters. I've got big ears.
Thank you. Keith Wheeler, your closing statement.
Thank you. I want to say thank you again, everyone, for coming out tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and Royal University for hosting us tonight. It's been wonderful. I want to talk about something that we hadn't gotten too many questions about, and that is something that happened not too far down the road from here, and that has to do with what happened at the Henry Pratt building just a few years ago. And sometimes in Springfield, it's hard. We worked hard for years on trying to find a legislative answer to what happened there. How do we make our public safer? When we finally got to the point just last year of what we thought was supposed to be a negotiated solution, some people took a different take on that. And when the bill got to the Senate, not a single Senate Republican voted for the bill. When I got to the House, I was under the impression that the House Democrats alone didn't have enough votes to get it through. It became literally my decision to choose whether or not this bill was going to pass. Not only did I have to get my own vote in line, which I was happy to do, I had to recruit several House Republicans who weren't interested necessarily at the outset of voting for that bill. By being collaborative, by being honest with my friends, with my neighbors, and my colleagues, we moved a bill through that passed, that the governor signed, that has since taken 7,000 guns out of the hands of people who don't have an eligible right to have that. It prevented 25,000 more people from getting a FOID card who aren't eligible to have those either. Proud of the work we did. It was bipartisan. It was collaborative, and I'm grateful to be got it done.
Thank you. We appreciate your participation, whether you are a candidate or a voter. It's essential to preserve our freedom and our country. For more information, please visit the nonpartisan websites vote411.org and illinoisvoterguide.org, where the recordings of this forum will be posted on each candidate's page, as well as all the League of Women Voters sponsoring this forum's website. Please remember to vote on or before November 8th. Let's all thank the candidates and the Voter Service Committee that organized this forum. I'd like Patty Lackman to come up again and just give us the most up-to-date candidate forum information again. Yeah.
Have the next group come up now.
Okay.
I would have the next candidates come forward, please. Thank you very much, guys.
I want to let you know of a couple of forums that are coming up. Our League of Women Voters of Central Kane County is having a forum on, the 27th of September at Geneva Library, and there will be candidates for the offices of Kane County Board Districts 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 18 who have been invited. Kane County Sheriff, Kane County Clerk, and Kane County Treasurer. We also have, as I previously indicated, a forum scheduled for October 4th at the Geneva Library. The candidates that have been invited are candidates for Illinois House 65 and Illinois Supreme Court District 2 and the 11th Congressional District. So we would hope that we would see you there. So are we all? If you have any questions that you would like to have asked of the candidates, if you could have a card that will be picked up here and given to our question reviewers. Our question reviewers are from the local leagues, and they review for appropriateness and clarity, and to make sure that the questions can be asked and answered by both of the candidates. Once we get seated, we'll start with the second section. I think we have a couple. Okay. A couple of questions coming in. And we'll have Moderator Dorner take over. Thank you.
All right, my name still is Jan Dorner. And I live in Illinois Senate District 23, so again, I do not have a vote in this race. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. We are happy to provide this service for the community. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for verifying the accuracy of the statements that candidates make in this forum. Questions have been collected from League and community members and were screened for duplication, clarity, and appropriateness to the office being discussed. The candidates have not been provided the questions before the forum. At this time, I would ask that you please turn off cell phones and other electronic devices. I would also ask that you refrain from applauding or in other ways demonstrating support or opposition of a candidate. No campaign literature may be passed out in this room. Note cards and pencils have been provided on which to submit your questions. Questions will be screened for duplication, clarity, and appropriateness to the office being discussed. Please signal a volunteer when your question is ready for submission. Also, signal a volunteer if additional note cards are needed. This forum is between the two candidates seeking to represent Illinois 42nd Senate District of the Illinois General Assembly. The candidates agreed in the ground rules that no voice, image, or other duplication of the forum may be used by any candidate's representative or campaign in any campaign advertising. They will each present a 90-second introductory statement. The order determined alphabetically by last name. Then questions will be asked, and each candidate will have up to 1 minute to respond in alternating order. Closing statements will be 90 seconds. Candidates, please notice the timers up here. When you see the stop sign, you may finish your sentence. Our candidates this evening are Linda Holmes and Paul Santucci. So let's start with opening statements. Candidate Holmes, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to begin first by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting an informational forum for voters. And I also want to thank Aurora University, and in addition, those of you attending. Our government works best when voters have as much information as possible about those who are seeking to represent them. My background led me to represent the 42nd District in the Illinois Senate. For over 20 years, I was a small business owner. I was also a neighborhood advocate and sat on several committees in Aurora. It was in my blood to be a champion for others. I was elected to the King County Board in 2004. That was my first run for political office. I was there for a year when I was asked to run for the Senate. I was elected to the Senate in 2006. My neighborhood work and county board experience resulted in my strong stance of supporting government, local government, and local control. My decades of owning a small business resulted in my strong pro-business perspective. I understand that a strong economy will result if we create good-paying jobs and make government more efficient. My greatest strengths as a legislator are my open-door policy and ability to work collaboratively with both parties. As a moderate Democrat, I bring a common-sense, pragmatic approach to legislating. I'm the assistant majority leader in the Senate, and I also want to say I welcome the opportunity to answer questions and hear from the voters.
Thank you. Paul Santucci, your introductory statement.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. And thank you to Aurora University, which I'm a Spartan. I went to Aurora University for grad school back in the 90s. And didn't have nice buildings like this then. But I am running because, not that I think my opponent has done a bad job. Obviously, she's done something right to be continually re-elected. But Springfield in general just is not what most people I talk to is not functioning the way they want it to be. Just another senator this week was indicted for bribery. So I want to change the culture. I want to change the procedure. I want to make Springfield more united. I want to work both sides of the aisle. I want to have compromise again in our government. And through my career as a real estate broker, as well as an elected official on the township in my third term, I've learned to work well with both sides, talk about both sides of the issue, come up with a common sense, collaborative solution. And that's what I want to bring to Springfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Santucci, how do you propose the state balance the responsibility of the public school districts to align their curriculum with state standards with individual parents who oppose these standards?
Well, having 3 children of my own who have grown up in the Aurora City, Naperville Township school districts, I think parents do need to have a say in the education of their children. I think it should be non-political. I think the political rhetoric that goes on in that issue takes away from coming up with a solution, and we need to stop the rhetoric and come up with a true solution for everybody.
Linda Holmes?
I'm
same
sorry,
question.
what exactly was the question again?
Sure. How do you propose the state balance the responsibility of public school districts to align their curriculum with state standards with individual parents who oppose these standards?
We work really closely in Springfield when we're crafting bills that deal with education. The unions, IEA and IFT, have a lot of input, so they're getting their information from actually the teachers who are out there in your community teaching your children. It's become a little difficult, I think we saw during the pandemic, unfortunately. School board members who are unpaid, who are taking their own time to do this, really faced a very, very difficult time. So again, I think there is a lot of working together on these issues, and parents are always welcome to have their input. And very often, even on things mandated that deal with the curriculum, parents do have an opportunity to opt out if they choose.
Thank you. Candidate Holmes, what is your response to people who say Illinois residents are fleeing the state because of high property taxes and many other concerns?
I say it's very interesting because the latest data is actually that number is not correct. And for years, people have used that. Census data also has not been correct in saying that we're losing as much population as they show. So it's an argument where I would like somebody to go back and find the data and show it to me so I can see those real numbers. Illinois has an awful lot to offer. We are a main transportation hub for the entire country. We have many Fortune 500 companies. This is a great place. They're also finding that students are coming to Illinois to learn and to attend our universities. So again, I would just ask somebody to do a little more research on this.
Candidate Sansucci, same question.
I think two issues are senior citizens who just can't afford the property taxes to stay in Illinois once they've retired. I'm approaching that myself. My wife and I are questioning those same things. I think that is a major issue. Another issue is the schools. I think our higher education system in Illinois is faulty. I think the cost for in-resident students is way too high. I have two daughters in college. They both chose to leave the state to go to college. I couldn't convince them to go to U of I or any of the other Illinois schools. So one is at Iowa State and the other is at Indiana. That is an issue, and that's going to be a perpetual issue that if students leave Illinois to go to college for their higher education, once they get jobs, they'll get jobs near the schools that they're going to. That's where their connections are going to be. They're not going to come back to Illinois, so that's another issue.
Candidate Santucci, will you support amendments of the Safety Act to address concerns expressed by both Republicans and Democratic state's attorneys, or is the repeal of the act the only option?
Well, I do, as I learn more and more of the act, I do think there were some reforms, especially some of the police and law enforcement reforms that were beneficial to the citizens of Illinois, but there were also issues that a lot of the state's attorneys and attorneys I've talked to and judges feel is not good and needs to be repealed. So could there be amendments to the original act and keep it somewhat in place? Yes, I believe there can be. But if that is not the action, then I think we need to push to repeal the entire act.
Thank you. Candidate Holmes.
When this bill came before us, I talked with my local police, I talked with the sheriffs. We discussed a lot of the issues. I will tell you that they agreed that much of the bill had some really good measures in place. Unfortunately, there were some issues, and the one that is confronting us now, which have really caused an uprising. There's been a lot of misinformation out there about it, but there are some real concerns that our state's attorneys have raised. I am currently working with our state's attorneys, and we're crafting a bill that they're optimistic will have the support of most of the state's attorneys throughout the state. So that's something we're working. It was a major, major bill. It definitely needs adjustments. It definitely needs tweaks. I have already voted twice to amend the bill. On this point, I will also continue to say that either we need to postpone the effective date of it, or make sure we get the bill that's being drafted right now by the state's attorneys. And I was a no vote on the initial bill.
Thank you. Candidate Holmes, should the state of Illinois provide respite support services and/or funding for families and individuals who are primary caretakers of individuals with mental, physical, or cognitive disabilities?
Yes, I think we need to. We're a population that is aging. We also know that people are best off staying in their communities and staying in their homes if possible. So we need to make that more affordable and more available. The other issue is obviously you will have, we have some children with such severe developmental disabilities, they're never going to have the opportunity to live on their own, and they've got their aging parents taking care of them. So we need to make sure that we're able to handle that as we're confronted with it.
Thank you. Paul Santucci, same question.
Yes, I agree with Senator Holmes. I think it is partially a mental health issue as well as with the aging population. I have a mother-in-law who's in the next year or two going to have to decide whether she moves to a care facility or moves in with us, my wife and I, and we become the care facility. And I do support that people in that situation do need some sort of, if they can't work in order to, or they're already retired, in order to take care of their elderly relatives, they need some support.
Thank you. Candidate Santucci, do you support banning the purchase and ownership of assault weapons and ammunitions by individuals?
So this is a very personal issue. My brother, lives in Highland Park, two blocks away from the attack there, and he was present. I personally believe, regardless of my party or what they believe, or the organizations that push for this issue, I'm 100% behind the Second Amendment. But I believe assault rifles and armor-piercing bullets and alike are weapons of war, and they should be for the military and special police. They should not be available to the public.
Thank you. Linda Holmes, same question.
I would, depending on how it's put in the piece of legislation. Any issue, it's like in theory, I can say I agree with it, but you have to see all the details in the legislation and what it's going to impact. We've in the past tried to pass gun laws and it wasn't constitutional. So we have to make sure that what we're doing is actually going to be something that works. So again, I'd have to see how the bill was worded. Do I think that people need to be running around with assault weapons? No. But I'd also like to know how we're defining assault weapons.
Thank you. Candidate Holmes, how should the state of Illinois respond to state governors that are sending immigrants to cities like Chicago?
That's an interesting issue, and I'm not sure on the state level what we're going to do with that issue. I think it goes back to the problem that we've had in this country for decades, and I have to say, I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, immigration has been an issue confronting our country for years, and yet no matter which party is in power in Washington, we never seem to get a national solution. I don't think it's a state thing. I don't understand it as a state act, actually, because so Texas is going to send people here because they say it's a burden on their state. But Texas also has oil, which is an advantage for their state. They don't share the profits with us.
Candidate Santucci, the same question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
Sure. How should the state of Illinois respond to state governors that are sending immigrants to cities like Chicago?
Again, I agree with Senator Holmes. I don't see that the state can make legislation that would do anything to affect that. I think each city, I assume, has to have their own procedures. If we come up with a state policy or procedure to either fund what we do with those immigrants or the process that we're going to have to accept them and put them forward as citizens in our state, how we do that is a major undertaking that we, aren't even ready to discuss yet. So if that continues while I'm in office, I would definitely try everything we could to resolve it without the harm of the people that are being moved around.
Thank you. So we have a couple of education questions here. The first, we'll start with candidate Santucci. How would you increase funding to school districts that do not have a strong property tax base?
Well, that's been a big question my whole life, I think. I remember hearing as a kid when the Tollway Authority was going to expand from just the tri-state, that all that toll money was going to go to education in Illinois. And I don't know if a dime of it ever did. So there are other programs that have taxes, gas taxes, items that have been said to be earmarked for education that never, I don't believe, ever got there. So I think that's part of what we need in Springfield, is to clean up that nonsense of stealing from one pot to put in another or to fund some other activity. If the money is earmarked for education, it should go to education. We also need to work to get more federal funding from education to support those schools in the different districts.
Thank you. Linda Holmes, same question.
Well, in the state, it was, I'm trying to think of how many years ago it was, that we passed the evidence-based funding model for our K through 12 education, which is putting more money in, and to be honest, in subsequent budgets, we are adding more and more money into that. And basically the point of that was so it would be equitable. So if you had, and I had to deal with this when you looked at the school districts that I represented, because I represent Aurora East, which is a not as wealthy school district as, say, Naperville 204 is. And the evidence-based funding that we do puts them now on a par with each other.
Thank you. And here's the education question about universities. Will you support increased funding for Illinois' higher education system? How will you support investments in vocational education, especially for at-risk youth?
I think any of my people with Aurora University know that I'm a huge supporter of our colleges, and we do need to, when we had the budget impasse under Governor Rauner, and he cut education, especially higher ed, so drastically, and we're still trying to recover from that, so we are putting money back into it.
Thank you. Paul Santucci, same question.
Well, I think, again, we need to work with the federal level to get more funding for our higher education. I think we need to reevaluate some of our schools, our major school, University of Illinois, as to why so many students from in-state do not choose to apply or attend there. If they can get higher money from people from other countries and other states, that's great, but if we want it to be a true education provided for our citizens and our residents, we need to resolve that.
Thank you. Candidate Santucci, do you support a woman's right to choose regarding her reproductive health?
Again, that's me personally, I have one belief, but as a representative of the people, I would not push my personal beliefs on how I would vote for those levels of issues. I personally will never vote to take rights away from anybody for any reason.
Linda
So
Holmes.
that's basically my stance.
Linda Holmes, same question.
If you look at my voting record over the 16 years I've been in office, I am adamantly pro-choice and will always be.
Thank you. Candidate Holmes, do you support the objectives of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA? What policies and programs will you support to enable or enhance the mission of CEJA?
Well, I think I do, and I have always been endorsed by Sierra Club, so any of these issues are vitally important to me, especially when we're looking at climate change and the impact it's having on all of us, and especially Puerto Rico going through another major hurricane, the second in 5 years. We just passed a major energy bill last year, which I did support and will continue to support. And that bill was a major bill, but it's also going to be changing as we go forward because we're always running into new technologies and new ways of doing things. And we have to figure out some of the ways to increase the amount of renewables we use in our grid that supports our energy.
Thank you. Paul Santucci, same question.
Yes, I am definitely a supporter of finding new energy resources. Climate change is definitely a thing. We need to worry about it. The water crisis and power crisis in the West Coast and the Southwest is something that we feel won't come here because of our resources, but it definitely isn't far behind. So I think we need to continue to fund and research and develop as many alternate energy sources as we can, and do everything we can to make the technology affordable, like electric cars, etc., that all of us can participate, not just the people with higher incomes.
Thank you. Candidate Santucci, should Illinois be offering incentives to businesses to hire workers with criminal records? What type of incentives would you endorse?
I don't know. Personally, I don't know that we need incentives. I would hope that small business owners and medium, large business owners in Illinois would naturally hire those workers. But if we feel that incentives are required, yes, I would support that.
Linda Holmes, same question.
Yes, and I think what we've noticed, especially over the past couple years with the criminal justice reform, there has always been a big push on how we deal with people once they are coming out of the jails, that there needs to be sort of an in-between stage that helps people get back on their feet and make sure that they're not just going right back into the situation from which they left that got them imprisoned in the first place. And I think we're going to continue to work with that. There's a lot of organizations that do a lot of very good work with that, and they keep in touch with us and are always introducing new legislation that we can support.
Thank you. Candidate Holmes, is Illinois' response to the opioid crisis adequate? How can Illinois assist county and municipal governments assess the impact of the crisis and address the crisis?
Again, this has been a huge discussion for probably over the past 5 years. I think I had recently heard a statistics that fentanyl may be the #1 killer of people between age 19 to 44 or something. So it really is a problem, but it's not a problem that any government is ignoring. The problem is it's a very difficult problem to solve. And I think it all stemmed from, let's face it, there was a time when the drugs given to people for pain relief were easily accessible. And once those were not as easily refilled, people turned to illegal drugs to get that same benefit.
Thank you. Candidate Santucci?
Yes, we've discussed this on even the township level with the different organizations that we work with that deal with this type of situation. I think part of it does, it is a health issue. And whether the county, the state, and even down to township and municipalities come up with a program, we need to come up with a program that would address this issue in its seriousness. We can't ignore it, and I think part of it needs to treat the mental health of those people who have become addicted. Like Linda was saying, a lot of them start just as pain relief, for an injury or something, but then they become so addicted to that opioid that they turn to other resources to get it once their prescription expires, and we need to address that immediately.
Thank you. Candidate Santucci, what programs do you propose to cut in order to reduce property taxes?
So 65% of my bill, which I'm sure it's probably most of you as well, is for schools. So again, if we get better federal funding and we have more support from the state to those schools, that property tax bill can be lessened. As far as other ways to reduce taxes, the list is way too long to say in 1 minute, but we just need to continually evaluate where we can cut or evaluate the efficiencies of what we're taxing and keep the burden as low as we can.
Candidate Holmes, do you have any programs that you would propose to cut in order to reduce taxes?
I don't think you can specifically say there's a program you would cut. What I do have to say is obviously in Illinois we are dependent upon property taxes to fund education. That is something that started, of course, years and years ago, and it's really difficult to figure out another way to handle that. But what we could do is to continue to, we could raise more money. We're odd in the fact that many of our surrounding states tax services, which we don't do. So it's really interesting when you look and you take a whole tax burden of where it is. We do pay higher property taxes, but if you look like a state at Colorado, they pay much more in their vehicle taxes. So it's all sort of broken out. I think we'd have to take a real in-depth look at it to see if we need to cut something to lower property taxes. I don't know how you actually do that trade-off.
Thank you. Linda Holmes, how will you support the findings and recommendations of the State of Illinois Water Task Force to safeguard water resources and improve water quality in our district?
Again, as Representative Wheeler mentioned, we did some work together on Kendall, some of the municipalities in Kendall County. We've also been doing a lot of work lately on safe drinking water, which is trying to replace all the lead pipes. We also know that in northern Illinois, it was said to me when I was on the county board, this is going back in 2004, that northern Illinois would have a serious problem with drinking water within the next 20 years. So I think we need to be much more, sort of conserve our water a lot better than we do and understand that we're pretty spoiled in thinking we just flip a faucet and we have water. So I think we need to start making sure that people are more responsible with their water usage. And again, look at the other ways we can get it, because Lake Michigan is not going to be able to be used by every community surrounding us for water.
Thank you. Paul Santucci, same question.
Yes, I agree that the solution needs to be all the citizens have to, follow the same rules as far as usage of water. Use the water efficient appliances, use the water efficient toilets and things like that. Don't circumvent those things. Don't water your lawn every day. Follow the rules as far as your county or city has for usage of water. But we also need to look at what's happening in California in the Southwest, where they thought they had endless water and all their drinking water lakes are drying up. And we don't think Lake Michigan will ever dry up, but it could get to a point where the water is not drinkable.
Thank you. Candidate Santucci, how will you work to protect and increase voter registration and access to the polls?
Well, I don't agree with the gentleman, Mr. Hanson, who was here before, when he said that it's all a party issue. Obviously, I'm on the opposite party of what he was saying, but I personally have never met a Republican who tried to stop anyone from getting registered or from voting. So I personally think I don't see any stats that say if every person has the opportunity to vote that one party would do better than the other. So I'm of the belief, let everyone vote. It's your right as an American citizen, and everyone deserves to exercise that right.
Thank you. Candidate Holmes?
I think we've done a lot, again, in past years, and what we've done to increase the opportunities for people to vote. We didn't used to always have early voting, which makes it a lot easier, mail-in voting, and I think especially during the pandemic of 2020, we learned that people did want those options to do the absentee voting and to have early voting in place. So I think we keep going further and further and trying to make it as easy as possible to do their civic duty and to get out there on election day or even a month before and vote.
Okay, so we've been through 14 questions now. I have no more questions up here, so let's go to closing statements, and we will start with Linda Holmes.
Thank you. I want to conclude by once again thanking the League of Women Voters and those attending, and I want to emphasize my commitment to continue to be a voice of reason and common sense. I will continue to reach across the aisle and work with Republican members to pass legislation that benefits my constituents in the 42nd District. A good example of that was my no vote on the Safety Act. I am also endorsed by the FOP and the Sheriff's Association. Other areas I want to emphasize are my commitment to fight for women's right to choose. I was diagnosed over 3 decades ago with multiple sclerosis. That was a time when if you were diagnosed with similar health care challenges, you were priced out of the market in order to obtain health insurance. Everyone should have access to affordable health care and prescription drugs. I've been a strong voice for more trades training and apprenticeship, good paying job opportunities, helping small businesses cut through red tape, and to lower property taxes. I will always fight for more infrastructure improvements, improving education, and I will continue to lead on animal welfare. I have twice been the Humane Society's Legislator of the Year. So I want to thank you all. And I really appreciate the opportunity to have represented so many of you for the past 16 years.
Thank you. Paul Santucci, your closing statement?
I again want to thank you, the League of Women Voters and Aurora University for hosting this. I, again, am running because of the culture and what is not happening in Springfield. I just want to be that voice of common sense that will talk to both sides and stop this it's all or nothing, good or bad mentality in Springfield, where they don't even talk, negotiate, or compromise on the issues across the aisle. So I want to use my solution, problem-solving skills to bring safety, prosperity, and integrity back to the office. I'm sick of the corruption that's going on in Illinois, and I want to be that person who corrects that. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your participation, whether you are a candidate or a voter. It's essential to preserve our freedom in our country. For more information, please visit the nonpartisan websites vote411.org and illinoisvoterguide.org, where the recordings of this forum will be posted on each candidate's page, as well as all the League of Women Voters sponsoring this forum's websites. Please remember to vote on or before November 8th. Let's all thank the candidates and the Voter Service Committee that organized this forum. Thank you, VATV and Aurora University.